Hi, and welcome to the NDIS Marketing Podcast. In previous episodes so far, we've covered off marketing and branding and what the difference is between the two of them. We've also covered out who to market to, websites and why they're important to NDIS providers. Then we've looked at all things SEO and social media for NDIS providers and why they're important in your marketing strategy. We then looked at all things business and video marketing and how NDIS providers would benefit from using video in their marketing strategy. We then looked at the power of the voice and how you can actually use voice and voiceover artists to emphasize your message to your target audience and use that as part of your marketing tactics as well. We then looked last week at podcasting and an interesting episode there with Eric K. Johnson, who joined us all the way from the United States of America. And we talked about how the different steps that are involved in actually getting your podcast ready for your listeners and all the equipment that you would need, strategies that you would need, how to actually record your podcast, and then how to actually upload it, where to upload it to, so that your listeners will actually find your podcast. Now, today I'm doing a solo episode with covering off the topics of telemarketing. And this is something that's absolutely passionate to my heart. For those that are aware of this podcast and know me personally, would know that I have 27 years worth of experience in telemarketing. And so let's get into today's episode. Telemarketing, we've either, made those vexatious calls or been on the receiving end of them. But are they really effective? Well, one would think they must be if companies are actually investing so much time and money and energy into telemarketing campaigns. Now, the answer is not actually really that simple at all in terms of whether or not they are effective. It's not a black and white thing as to whether a telemarketing campaign is really actually a cost-effective method for getting your message out to your target audience. There's a lot of factors at play in making sure that your telemarketing campaign is successful. So over the next few weeks, because it is such a broad topic and there's so many little nuances involved in telemarketing, over the next few weeks, we'll actually explore what are some of those factors that are at play in making sure that your telemarketing campaign is successful. Things like the right script, the right list, the right person to actually make the call, because you can't actually you could have the best script in the world. You could be calling the right people, have the right list to be calling, all of that. But unless you've actually got the right person with the right personality behind the call, then those other things are basically meaningless. Now, then we'll look at how to actually get to speak to the person that actually makes the right decisions in terms of the purpose of the call. And also then we'll look at timing and how that is important in the success of a telemarketing campaign. We'll also look at budgets and how they play into the success of a telemarketing campaign, as well as listening skills and how important it is to be a good listener when you're running a telemarketing campaign, as well as negotiation skills and how to negotiate your way around a telemarketing call. We'll also look at how product knowledge plays into that and how important product knowledge is and how important it is to be empathetic and show empathy and understanding towards your prospects on the phone, because all they actually have is your voice. They can't actually see you like you may be able to see me now if you're watching this on, say, YouTube, or, or how you might be actually listening to this on your favorite podcast player, and therefore you can only actually hear my tone of my voice and the words in which I'm using and the way in which I'm delivering them. And that all plays back to actually knowing your target audience, which is the most important thing. And that was the very first episode that we did of the NDIS Marketing Podcast. If you want to go back and have a listen to that, about how to know who your target audience is and whether or not you're actually targeting the right audience. And that is very important for a telemarketing campaign, because then that all plays into the actual words in which you use, the way in which you deliver them as well. Our legislation around the industry that you're in, within the NDIS industry, there's a lot of legislation around that, about things that you can and can't say, things that you can and can't do. Well, the same is the telemarketing industry. There are a lot of things that you have to say on the call. Like, for example, at the beginning of a call, you must introduce your name, where you're calling from, and the purpose of the call right at the very beginning of the call. And we'll dive into in this series about how that is important, because that can, if you're breaching certain laws and legislations around telemarketing, that can then play into things like fines for the person actually making the call, as well as fines for the person or company in which they're calling on behalf of. And I believe some of those fines could be up to as much as $250,000 per offence. So it can get quite costly. We'll also look at CRMs, which are customer retention management systems, or basically just a database or a way of which you can actually keep people's contacts, and the legal requirements around that as well as systems, and making sure that you've got the right systems in place to be able to run an effective telemarketing campaign. We'll then also look at, in this series, having a purpose for the call, because there's no point in actually picking up the phone and making a call unless you know what the outcome of that call is that you're actually trying to achieve. We'll then look at, is it worth actually hiring your own telemarketing team and running all of this in-house? Or what are the pros and cons of actually outsourcing that to, say, someone like myself, or to an overseas company that runs a big call center? Or there are also big call centers here in Australia that could actually do this for you. Yeah, that and they're all over Australia, and it just depends on the outcome of the call, your budget, of course, and whether or not you're comfortable with actually outsourcing any of that. Also, is it going to be, when you're running a telemarketing campaign, an inbound exercise where you run an inbound campaign where people are actually calling you, and you have people on the phones answering those calls, say like a telecommunications company, when you call them up and say, hey, I've seen this ad on television, or I've seen this pop up in my email inbox. I'd like to know more information about it. Or are you going to run an outbound campaign, which is what I specialize in, whereby you actually have somebody who makes outbound calls to a predetermined list of people with a predetermined outcome for the call. So there's some of the things that you need to keep in mind, just all the little nuances you need to consider to make your telemarketing campaign a success. So rather than bore you with long articles over the next or long podcast episodes over the next few episodes, I'll take a deep dive into the factors that actually do make a great telemarketing campaign. Now, let's kick off with the right script. Now, having the right script for your telemarketing campaign and your target audience and the product and service, you need to make sure that that script is actually congruent with your business goals, your ethos behind your business, your whole sales process, and having that will actually help you avoid a world of pain when it comes to actually asking for the sale. So, what does the right script actually look like? Always introduce yourself and the company you're calling from. And actually, in some states, as I previously mentioned, like, for example, New South Wales and Victoria, I know for a fact that it is actually a legal requirement that the very first thing that you must say when somebody picks up your call is, "Hi, my name is Greg. I am calling on behalf of," and the reason I am calling is, you must legally use that phrase or words to that effect when the call begins. Always phrase what you say on a call as though you're asking for help. People could love to help. They love when you offer help as well. So when people hear, "Would you help?" especially in Australia, we're conditioned to open up and help in any way possible. It just seems to be the Australian way. Qualify who the decision maker is vitally important. There is no point in going through an entire script if the person on the other end of the call is not the decision maker. You have just wasted your time, and you've also wasted their time when you could have been making another call to a person who actually has the authority to make decisions. Now, for example, there's no point in pitching to a receptionist or someone who has no clue about the reason for your call. Use scenarios as well that decision makers can relate to build rapport, as well as building empathy and understanding, because people buy from those they know, like, and trust. So use scenarios that they understand. Like, for example, in the NDIS space, you could be calling support coordinators or plan managers and saying, "Have you ever had a participant who is in," and explain a situation that a participant could be in that you solve. Only ever start talking about yourself and the solution that you provide once you have established rapport with the decision maker. I cannot stress that enough. As I have mentioned, you're wasting your time and you're wasting the prospect's time if you are not speaking to the decision maker and have established what the decision maker's needs are. There is no point rambling on about how great your company is and how the services you provide solve X, Y, and Z if the person that you are speaking to does not have that problem. Now, establish how your product and service is the solution to the problem they are trying to solve. So, for example, as I've said, if you're calling support coordinators and they mention to you, "Oh, I have a male in his 20s who has behavioral issues and needs accommodation urgently." Now, there's no point in going on about how great your services are and what problems they solve if you're not focused on solving accommodation issues for behavioral disabilities with people in their 20s. It is just a wasted call, and it's going to, no matter what way you take it, what you do in that call, it is not going to take the call anywhere or progress it further, because you cannot solve the particular problem in which that support coordinator has. Only then do you start talking about your solution, but keep it brief. Who do you help? What you help them do? How you help, and what is the outcome that they get from your help? Then close by asking, would you be open to? And that could be, after that, it could be, would you be open to getting on a Zoom call? Would you be open to a phone call from one of our head support coordinators? Would you be open to a call from our CEO to discuss how we might be a good fit for the particular participant in which you have mentioned, just as an example of how you would progress that call? Now, you need to have the right list, as I've mentioned. Now, now that you know who you're calling and why, and you have the script that includes the elements that I've mentioned previously, you need to know who you're going to call and how to contact them. Now, this list could be your social media followers. It could be people who have inquired via your website form or a giveaway, or you can collate a list from the internet, even buy a list from a list broker, or you could even go to the NDIS portal and tick the relevant boxes for whether it be support coordinator, plan manager, counseling services, psychologists, psychiatrists. You can also do a Google search for those kind of things from the internet. When you've sourced your list, determine will determine by your script that you're going to use. That list will be determined by the script that you will use, because that will determine the reason for the call. For example, it's no point for an NDIS provider who provides accommodation for people with high physical needs to call psychologists and counseling services, for example, because they are more likely to be um, dealing with people who have psychosocial disabilities rather than physical disabilities. And when you get your list from the NDIS portal, which allows you to search by location and search for particular providers, so you can get very specific on who you're actually targeting. And the more targeted you can get your list, the greater success that you will actually have. Now, one approach that works well, regardless of the services that you actually provide, as I mentioned, is to call support coordinators, because they deal with a wide range of disabilities and age groups and geographical locations. And the aim of that call is to introduce your services, to see if they would be open to meeting via Zoom or face to face to discuss specific cases and how you might be able to help, or how you might be able to work together moving forward. Uh, as the saying goes, there's no point in selling ice to Eskimos. So what that means is there's no point in selling what you have or offering what you have to somebody who has absolutely no need for it at that particular moment in time. And that comes down to having the right person that makes the call. Telemarketing is a tough gig. It takes a certain type of person to keep making call after call after call and getting rejection after rejection after rejection. No, no, no. And even in some cases, and I've had this a lot over my 27 years of experience, where they just hang up. They don't say, no, sorry, I'm not interested, or give an explanation as to why they're not interested. You could be just, hi, my name is Greg and I am calling on behalf of XYZ, and they'll just hang up. Oh, yes, there'll be rejection and lots of it. The trick is to realize that not everyone that you speak to is in need of your service at that particular moment in time, or there's no point trying to convince them either that they actually need your service. That is the biggest mistake you can make on the telephone, is trying to convince somebody that they need your service when they have already made it very clear that they don't need it. And in some states and some situations and circumstances, that can actually be deemed as illegal, because once somebody says they are not interested under Australian consumer law, fair trading laws, and the telemarketing acts that govern telemarketing in Australia, that can actually be deemed as you have now broken the law and could be liable for a fine and court proceedings, etc., etc. So once somebody says that and made it clear that they are not interested, you must terminate the call. And if nothing else, that's actually just good business practice, because you're clearly not a fit for each other, and you're actually going to end up in a world of pain with participants that you just cannot and do not want to work with. So don't push the issue of trying to get participants just for the sake of getting participants. This doesn't mean that you actually hang up and move on to the next call at the first sign of resistance. And we'll actually deal with that when we talk about objections in a later episode of this podcast. But if they clearly have no, as I've mentioned, have no need for what it is that you're offering, genuinely, there is no point to push any further. People hate pushy salespeople. Respect their position and move on. I cannot stress that enough. Because you do not know who they know and who they know and who they know. And once you get offside with one provider, that can have a massive knock-on effect. All that basically means is that they are clearly not the right person to be speaking to at that particular moment in time. And that could be for 100 reasons. It could be they're just new to the role, they're temporarily in the role. It could mean that they are clearly not the right person within the organization to speak to. It could be as simple as, well, we just don't have any participants in need of your services at the moment. The person making the call must have a thick skin, be able to handle rejection, but also have good negotiation skills to get to the truth quickly. The quicker that somebody can get to the truth on a phone call and find out the real reasons for the no, the happier everybody is, and the quicker you will get appointments, and the quicker you will get good quality sales that you actually want. Now, the right person will not take rejection personally, because they realize that every no is only one step closer to that elusive yes. Are you speaking to the right decision maker? Now, I've lost count of the number of calls that I've made, as I've said, over the last 27 years, where I have said all the right things, built rapport with the gatekeeper, the receptionist, or whoever answers the phone, got to the bottom of who the decision maker is, then got through to that person only to find out that they are not actually the right person to speak to, or there are multiple stakeholders involved in making such decisions. This results in a chasing game where you make call after call for weeks and weeks and not get anywhere. Once you speak to the decision maker, they will often be open to what you have to say. So you need to clarify with the person you're speaking to if there is anyone else involved in the decision making process. Now, timing is also a critical issue. Often it'll be the right person that you're speaking to, and they'll clearly have a need for everything that you offer. You both agree, you both gel, the call's going well, and you agree that this is the case. It is just not the right time. Now, that could be for a myriad of reasons. Most commonly, budget. They don't, most NDIS providers work off a budget, and they may not have the budget available at that particular moment in time. Or there could be internal issues that are more important at that moment in time, like there could be staff changes, change in decision makers. There could be change of focus for that particular service provider. And this is actually a good sign because they are actually interested in what you have to offer, need what you are offering. So they simply say, so simply say in that situation, well, isn't that interesting? I'm finding that a lot of providers I'm speaking to are in the same or similar situation at the moment. Is that because you are being audited or because of recent changes in the regulations? Or is it because of recent changes within your organization internally? Often they'll then open up and tell you why the timing is an issue. So you simply say, where do you think we should go from here? And make sure you pause. Where do you think we should go from here? Whatever they say to that, then follow that up with, would you be open to me calling in a month? Or would you prefer I call back in 3 months, as an example? Or would you be open to me calling back next week? Or would you rather I call you back later in the year? Then call back at the agreed time. Because once you phrase it that way, they have to give you a time at which is the best to call back. But the important thing there is to make sure that you get an agreed time to call back and that you actually do call back at that agreed time. And often when you call back, the decision maker will be in a better place to chat. You could also say, how do you think we should proceed from here? But remember, with everything you say, tonality is everything. It is often not what you say, but how you say it. And communication experts actually say that 90% of communication comes down to body language, which is communicated over the phone through tonality. In other words, it is not what you say, it is how you say it. I think the experts say that words only account for about 2% or 3% of what you say. Now, this, in wrapping up, is actually the first 5 of 17 elements that make up successful telemarketing campaigns. So, in my next episode, I'll take you on a deep dive into the next 5: the importance of budgets and the role they play in telemarketing, listening skills, and how important they are in the telemarketing process, as well as negotiation skills and how important it is to be able to negotiate and know how to negotiate on a telemarketing call. So I hope you found these tips for a telemarketing campaign successful, and you'll continue to listen as I unravel the little nuances that'll just make telemarketing all that little or that little bit more um, successful for you when you do run a telemarketing campaign. And don't forget that if you'd like to know more about myself and hassle-free marketing solutions and how we can actually help you get your message out to your target audience, then visit my website www.hasslefreemarketing.com.au, or you can email me greg@hasslefreemarketing.com.au, and I look forward to exploring more nuances on telemarketing in our next episode. Thanks for listening.